Welcome back to NFL on 365 Sports. I'm Grayson Grunhafer, and we are going to continue to recap these NFL draft selections. Today, we are talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and their epic draft class. Let's do it. Welcome in. Like I said, we're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs today, and what a draft class it was. I'm going to have a lot of praise for this class. We're going to talk about the grade at the end. We'll go through draft pick by draft pick. This draft class is elite. So really excited to go through some of these draft picks. The Chiefs came into this draft needing, a defensive end, a pass rusher, a cornerback, and a wide receiver. They addressed all of those positions, and they came in and they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to find a way to get Patrick Mahomes some help, but we're also going to try to get better on the defensive side. So I think they really hit kind of every position they needed to in this draft class. So let's start with their first pick, round 1, pick 21. They went out and got Trent McDuffie, the Washington cornerback, and he's one of the better cornerbacks in this class. Obviously, Derek Stingley, top cornerback, no doubt about it in my mind. But McDuffie was one of those guys that's kind of right there with being one of, the second best cornerback potentially in this draft class. And he's 5'11", 193, so the size isn't great. But the versatility and just kind of the way he plays is so perfect for the Chiefs. He's got a high motor, a very, very competitive player by all accounts. And that's huge. You want to have guys that are competitive on your team, and there's really no doubt about that with Trent McDuffie. I also love his versatility, like I mentioned, as far as the ability to play cornerback on the outside or in the slot. He gives them a lot more options, I think, to move him around a little bit. And also, he's pretty active in the run game as well. So I like that. I like those things about him. He doesn't have, like I said, great length or height, and he only has 2 interceptions. So he really needs to work on the ball skill part of his game. I also think zone coverage, he's got to figure out ways to create turnovers. In the Chiefs defense, they're relying on creating turnovers. And as we saw this year, when you have a defense that creates turnovers, it can flip game scripts and allow you to win football games. The Bengals did that in the playoffs. Even though their defense wasn't incredible, they forced turnovers and made big key plays at the right time. So McDuffie is going to have to turn into that, but I think he can. I think the ball skills are there. It's just a matter of putting it on film and putting it on the field. So I like this pick. They addressed the secondary. It's definitely an area they needed to. I think after that playoff game where Gabriel Davis had over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns, they're probably like, you know what? We need to figure out the second cornerback position and fix some things. And that's exactly what they did with their first pick. So really like that first pick for the Chiefs. Moving on to their second pick in this draft, round 1, pick 30. This pick, I think, was so tremendous. This is one of my best kind of value picks, I think, in the entire draft class, and I think it's being overlooked a little bit. So Purdue defensive end George Karlaftis goes to the Chiefs at pick 30. This guy, after his freshman year, was a projected, top 5 pick. He was expected to be basically what Aiden Hutchinson was for Michigan this year. And it just didn't all come together for him during his time at Purdue after his freshman season. But there are things I love about his draft profile. He just turned 21 at the beginning of April. This guy is young. I mean, there's a lot of growth still to be had there. After that, Purdue was not good at all at pass rushing. Really, I mean, they weren't good at all in general for the most part, but their other pass rushers were not very good at all, which led to him being doubled and triple teamed very often. And because of that, his production went down. And if you go and watch that film, if he gets one-on-ones, it's going to be very tough to block him. And even though he's 21, he still showed signs of being a very active pass rusher. And kind of going with that, his breakout age is very, very young. His true freshman year, he had 17 tackles for loss and 7.5 sacks. That true breakout age of 18, 19 is massive for his draft profile. It makes him one of those guys that is completely undervalued in this draft class. If you're only going to go off his last 2 years, in which his sophomore year was the COVID year and he only really played in 2 games, that was basically a lost season. And then last year he was solid despite, like I said, the issues with Purdue's defense as a whole and the fact that he was getting doubled and tripled so often. I love his athletic profile, 6'4", 266 pounds, 38-inch vertical, incredible, 121-inch broad jump, also incredible, and a 4.36 shuttle. I mean, those are elite numbers to go along with that pro day 40 time he dropped, which was a 4.71 in freezing cold conditions. So, and by freezing cold, I mean literally 30-degree weather. So the guy is a great athlete, great speed, great athletic profile, and also young and learning. And I think the Chiefs are going to get to throw him on the field and see what he can do early in his career, which will be great for him. But I think as he continues to progress, he's only going to get better and better. This was a tremendous draft pick and one that I simply can't believe fell all the way to pick 30 for the Chiefs. Moving on to round 2, pick 54. This is a wide receiver I've talked about quite a bit on this channel, but Western Michigan wide receiver Sky Moore. He's been kind of a analyst's favorite, and for good reason. I mean, 2,482 yards receiving, 16 touchdowns during his career. This past year had 1,292 yards and 10 touchdowns. He's an early declaree, so he didn't even play out his full time in college, which is tremendous towards his profile as well. 4.4 140 time, 34.5-inch vertical, and a 4.32 shuttle. So he does a lot of things really well, and I think my biggest kind of note on Sky Moore is a lot of people are talking about how he, could replace Juju in the slot in the future because Juju Smith-Schuster is just on a one-year deal there in Kansas City, but I view him as more of a guy who's going to have to mold into a slot receiver. I think he's truly going to be a replacement for Tyreek Hill or even a replacement for McCole Hardman in the next few years, because you got to let him do what he's good at. And what he's good at right now is vertical routes downfield. He's not great in and out of his breaks quite yet, which kind of speaks towards him maybe not being a slot receiver, even though that's what I think most people project. I don't really see it on film. I see him as more of an outside guy with blazing speed who's going to be able to beat you over the top of the defense. And that's something that Patrick Mahomes needs in this offense and something that Tyreek Hill brought to the table, but something that McCole Hardman hasn't consistently been able to do for them, over the past few years. So I think this is going to be a very kind of interesting year for him. And the reason I say is because you got Juju and you got Travis Kelce across the middle of the field and in those short yardage kind of modes. And also Juju probably in the intermediate routes as well. But when you look at Sky Moore, you go, okay, he can take the top off the defense. So can McCole Hardman. So it just is a matter of when can he kind of mold into that and how long does it take? Because they also added Marquez Valdes-Scantling as well. So there's a lot of competition on the outside. Whereas I think on the inside, they're pretty solidified with Kelce and Juju. But I'm excited for the prospect of his future. I think he will find a way to get on the field early, but I'm not sure if his breakout will be this year or the following season. Something to watch, but I do think this is a high-level wide receiver prospect and one that will fit in really nicely with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and everything that they're trying to do on the offensive side. Moving on to their other round 2 pick 62, Brian Cook, Cincinnati safety, a guy who I think is going to be very good at defending against tight ends. He had 96 tackles this past year, which speaks to his ability at stopping the run. He also had 2 interceptions, so he's able to create some turnovers as well. Played on a really good Cincinnati defense. Obviously, they made the college football playoff this year, and he was a big part of that. I do have questions about speed, which means I think he's going to have to play closer to the line of scrimmage. But I think his game time reactions can make up for his lack of top-end speed. And what I mean by that is his field awareness and kind of just feel for the game in general allows him to play a little bit faster than maybe a 40 time would say. So I like the pick. I think he brings in some experience, some toughness to that defense. I think the Chiefs are kind of saying we need to get tougher on this side of the ball, and I think he'll help bring that to the table. Moving on to round 3, pick 103, Leo Channel out of Wisconsin. I love this pick. The linebacker, Wisconsin's put out a lot of really good linebackers. They just really mold that position extremely well. Their defenses are always good, but I think Leo in particular fits a perfect need for the Chiefs. They need a Sam linebacker. They have Nick Bolton. They have Willie Gay to play the Mike and the Will. But they need a Sam. And I think Leo Chenal can do that for them really well. And honestly, this is, again, like, what is happening here? How in the world did the Chiefs get this guy? He's 6'2.5", 250 pounds. He ran a 4.53 40 time and had a 40.5-inch vertical. This guy is ridiculous as an athlete and is going to fit in so perfectly with what they're trying to do on the defensive side. I think he's a day one starter, and they got him in round 3. That's just tremendous. I think he's going to bring a level of field awareness, a level of maturity and leadership to that group, which is something I do think they need. I really like Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, but add another great leader, another great athlete next to them, and you could see big things for this Chiefs defensive unit next year. I think they could take a big step forward and really allow that offense to kind of mature. Because we know Patrick Mahomes is great, but when you lose Tyreek Hill and you're adding all these new wide receiving weapons, it might take a little bit of time for them to really reach their ceiling. But defensively, they might be there sooner rather than later. Late picks I like. Kentucky guard Darian Kennard. I think he could fit in nicely to what they're trying to do as far as the run game goes. Give him some time. He could develop into a starter at some point. But I really want to focus on Rutgers running back Isaiah Pacheco. This is a guy who's had 500 yards rushing, at least, at minimum, 4 straight seasons. And he ran a 4.37 at 216 pounds. He is a big back with a lot of speed, a lot of explosiveness, and a lot of athleticism that I think, you look at his draft profile, and this might be a bit of a steal for the Chiefs. And they really need to figure out their run game. They added Ronald Jones. We know what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been. But I think Pacheco could be a guy to watch going forward, possibly in the future. Maybe not this year, but I do like what he could bring to the table for this Chiefs defense as a late-round pick. Overall, there's no doubt this is an A-plus draft. I love what the Chiefs did. They addressed every position of need, every concern that everyone had about them this offseason. They addressed it. Great job to the Chiefs. This was one of the best draft classes I've seen this year and in a while. I mean, it's a very loaded draft class for them. So I'm going to continue doing these draft recaps throughout the next weeks, trying to go through every single team if I can, and also just give my thoughts, opinions, and grade out these draft classes as we move forward. But for today, this has been Grayson Grunehaver on NFL and 365 Sports.